De grasa, se ve interesante el juego. 2021, mi hermano. Está bien. Está ahí cerquita. Va a salir en Play 5 y en Play 4. Está bueno. Ese es mío. Puedo bajarle un poco el volumen. Ahí creo que está bien. Vamos a ver. Escucharlo de por aquí. Creo que no es este, creo que es el captura de audio a pantalla.
Remedy love time, bullet, travel or otherwise. In Control you again can defy the laws of physics and even time itself, but the last gen Northlight engine was a hungry hippo on those base consoles. Now that brand new hardware has landed in the SX and the PS5, the shackles are off for some unbridled ray tracing or 60 FPS action, or just one of those on the S. The question is though, how much pain for that game? Let's find out. The three consoles in question all have one mode in common, a performance mode that targets a buttery smooth 60Hz update. Double that of all console releases prior. The Series S comes in with 1600x900 resolution, fixed and not dynamic from all my counts. Now unsurprisingly, ray tracing is not possible here, largely due to memory constraints. Both the X and the 5 stretch their pixel pouches to 2560 by 1440, again appear fixed in both modes. Using Northlight's temporal A8 reconstruction, it
bajando todo esto, pero no sé por qué rayo no quiere funcionar.
Temporal A8 in Quantum Break, but here,
yo creo que ahora, porque
it has been updated or tweaked for that next round of hardware.
Vamos a ver cómo se está escuchando el audio.
Carry thanks to the game's art style and its strong specular highlights, contrasting tones, thin lines, and abundant SSR or ray traced reflections. It delivers a confident equilibrium of maintaining texture detail sharpness but reducing the sub-pixel temporal stability, even in movement, something you do a great deal of. It's not the best we've seen, with some areas becoming quite noisy and they can break up worse on the Series S. That reconstructed nature of the ray trace reflections can be noticed here in photo mode or just looking at it in glass. You notice that delayed trail as you move the camera, and that resolution breaks down to its base, and then when you stop it catches up, and that previous frame converges with the current frame into a fuller, cleaner object. Something similar in the rasterized image also that uses that temporal AA to reconstruct the image back up to 4K. The ray tracing is very effective, with an excellent combination of surface normals, microfacet distortion, with a good roughness cut-off using stochastic samples within marble, metals and brass surfaces. Something the lower ray trace reflections on consoles can actually help with at times, making the surface look more realistic with a little rougher, more diffuse surface level than the higher, shinier level on PC with its better quality ray trace reflections. But even the Fresnel, the expensive Fresnel in transparent reflections, is factored in, with oblique glancing angles heightening her reflection and then fading away into the object.
Faltan 13 minutos, mi gente, faltan 13 minutos.
They look great, and the BV-8 structure does hold a great deal of objects. These are all dynamically allocated at certain sector points, it seems. The curvature of objects is also factored into the reflection, giving accurate distortion. You can see this on chairs, bins, and every reflective surface that has a specular level above a certain roughness reflects everything around, and this helps with things like bounce lighting or the colour of the floor bouncing up on tables and metal legs and chairs. Now these can be cooled within a shorter range of the camera frustum and occasionally are loaded without a base albedo map within, but these are rare on the objects within BV-8. The blend of surface diffuse colour also factors into that reflection, which all adds to the excellent physically based materials the game has. Ray tracing simply adds a great deal to these moments when you have time to notice. I must note that the SX has some issues on that BV-8 level, being lost when it appears to be frustrum aligned, causing your character to disappear at points or flutter past
el otro lado. Aquí en Game Spot. Esta sí tiene subtítulos. Pero no sé si dice en español o inglés. Chavienda. Vamos a ver en la página oficial de PlayStation. Sería Latinoamérica. Fíjate, no veo aquí. Vandal está... pero eso es español de España. Cuando quiera. Fíjate eso. Bajarlo aquí.
Large BV-8 grid of objects in the background gives us a little bit of a delta test. Don't take this as gospel, but it is a good test. What you can see here is that this scene, spinning the camera around in the same spot in this room, the Series X holds a locked
no sé si lo dije bien, pero very good
single frame. Whereas
bueno,
the PS5
faltan
can get
10
somewhere
minutos.
between 16% and 5% delta as the camera moves around. Now remember, this is not the same as playing the game. There's no dynamic objects, there's no explosions, there's no CPU load at all really, there's no data being streamed in and out, so it's not really indicative of how the game would look. But on a pure rasterization and then ray tracing level, it does give us a view under the hood in terms of how the hardware is handling ray tracing, and that's because the more CUs and more TMUs, irrespective of clock speed, does point to the fact that the Series X should be better slightly at ray tracing, and this test proves it. But again, there's more to discuss around the APIs, the construction, and just how the ray tracing is working, but it's a good test nonetheless. Just as a quick comparison as well, comparing this to my 2070 Super, again on the same settings I can compare with consoles, again those reflections factored in, spinning the camera around in photo mode in the exact same spot. Then the PS5 is slightly faster than the 2070 Super, and the Series X is obviously faster than them both. So it does give you a good example of just how good these consoles are already at doing ray trace reflections across multi-platform titles like this.
Jesse, full lockdown. It seems to have spread everywhere and to everyone not protected by an HRA. And, extraordinarily, you.
Bueno, están enseñando cómo se ve en cada consola, que si se ve mejor en Series X, en PlayStation.
Worth it though in comparison to the other modes, higher frame rate and much
Ese juego lo dejé a mitad y no es porque me aburrí, porque el juego está en la madre, pero lo que pasó fue que como tengo tantos juegos que jugar, pues
than the ray trace ones do, and they do not benefit as much from that TAA. In action though, it can be harder to notice the loss, with only certain points in the game which lack those decent cube maps to fall back on. These can stand out.
Ahora mismo estoy jugando Hello Master Chief, que me arrepentí de no verlo transmitido, pero estoy jugando desde Halo Reach hasta el último, que creo que es el 5 o el 4. Y quiero jugar al Infinity War. No sé si lo dije bien, pero quiero jugar todos los Halo, quiero entenderlos todos. Oí rumores que están haciendo la serie y quiero verla también, porque va a flipar. Esa sería la competencia del juego este de Last of Us, que quiere hacer una serie. No, mi gente, no están enseñando nada nuevo, porque eso ya yo lo vi. Yo lo estoy jugando en el Game Pass. O sea, el Game Pass todavía está esto.
Now, as noted, the last gen versions target the same 30 FPS the ray trace mode does, but with lesser effects and no ray tracing. The new ray tracing mode on both consoles is vastly better and cleaner. If not, that much better on input time. But holding that 33 millisecond frame time pretty much all the time on the PS5. Except there are those deltas coming from those streaming stutters when you move into new sector points rather than in gameplay, although sometimes it can happen as you're moving around the combat area. Now this is obviously largely helped by the PS5's I/O construction. It's alleviated workloads away from the CPU and that SSD. Something else the PS5 boosts is almost half the install size thanks to Oodle texture compression. It only takes 25 gigabytes on your PS5 versus 42 gigabytes on both Xbox machines.
Es rareta el juego, pero el juego está que mola.
Translates to a smaller footprint, hardly any stutters
que quiera probarlo que meta mano, porque el juego es un juegazo.
Minor ones, but they can crop up more often than I would like on the Xbox.
Pero esas cosas así, esos monstruos así.
On the Xbox Series X. Again, minor, but every little help. But as boring as that 30 FPS mode is from an analysis perspective, it's great news for us as we play. You do get these stutters in the 30 mode and the 60 mode on the Series X, and I'll touch on what I think is happening there in a minute. But the 60 FPS mode has slightly more to discuss, not least of which is that Series X version. The game itself targets 60 FPS, but again, it's locked at 1600 by 900, and it does appear to have some reductions in some of the textures and details and filtering. Not a massive amount, but you can certainly notice it on cutscenes and certain parts when you're comparing them side by side.
Segundo, pero
you can also notice the lower resolution,
muchos frontearon con lo del tema
del SSD. Noise can get a little bit
noisy
at certain points, specifically at that lower
Miles Morales
it stands out much more than a 1080p
creo que el Spider-Man Remaster
but generally it holds on to that 60 FPS
los tiempos de carga
well.
superan a la de Play 4
and occasionally the structure is pretty much identical to the Series X, sometimes worse, sometimes better, but it's really synonymous of the entire game engine running on the hardware and how it's been constructed. The Series S is a pretty consistent 60. There are points when you can have long views, lots of geometry draw and alpha effects that can then bring that frame rate down to a consistent 40 at some of the heavier points you can see on screen, but it never really prolongs for too long, and generally you're somewhere in those mid-50s, so it still feels very fast, very smooth and very consistent. And overall it's a decent rendition of the game minus those ray trace options, but it still has that most important for me, that 60 FPS mode. Moving into the Series X and the PS5, the comparison here again is pretty close. They largely dip occasionally, very minor 30
Mira, se metieron dos personas en el directo. Saludos, no sé quiénes son, pero saludos. Pues nada. Faltan 4 minutos, señores. Faltan 4 minutos.
But they're not that far apart in this fully rasterized mode. Maybe ever so slightly better to the Series X, but you wouldn't notice it outside this comparison. The unfortunate thing, flipping the ray tracing test on its head, is there is consistent stutters and judders at points throughout the game. Again, consistent in when you traverse the game, when you run through it. Most of the combat sections, once they're loaded in, stay consistent at that 60 FPS. When you're travelling through areas, you can get these stutters you can see here, and that can bring the frame rate down to somewhere into the low 40s. It can be very brief, and it
yo sinceramente no quiero, pues, ¿verdad? Bajarle el hype, pero creo que ese comentario.
So it is the worst performing title because of the fact it dips down in these levels, which is a shame. But why is it doing this? Now, it's not because of that magic SSD. It's not because of all of those things that I've just spoken about in terms of the I/O construction specifically. Now, what I think it is an answer we can find over on the PC version. The Northlight engine is a very impressive engine. It's almost a perfect technical showcase of all the things the tech engineers want to push into a title. Ray trace reflections, huge physics, destruction, fluid-based simulation on alpha effects, so many particles and much more going on, that actually it's still a CPU-bound title often, specifically in those ray tracing modes, because that puts a much higher overhead on the CPU, but also it can be bound to one single thread. Not unknown, many titles are multi-threaded, but you have a worker thread that owns the rest of the game engine. And here on PC, you can see on my Ryzen 2700, just defaulting here to 3300, you can see it can max out 100% at times on one.
No voy a entender tres caramba porque del inglés soy pésimo, pero nada, vamos a tratar de entender, mala mía mi gente.
To the console versions, but because of that PS5's construction and the fact that pretty much everything to do with moving data in and out of load of RAM is actually taken away from the CPU, in addition to the API being slightly lighter on that console than the DirectX version on Xbox, then likely these issues are not hitting it where they are hitting it on the Series X and the Series S. Hence, we get these brief that crop up when things are instantiated into RAM, objects are drawn in, areas are closed off for
killing, to
keep data moving freely in and out of RAM, and there is a cost to that. Now, bearing in mind that when you use ray tracing, that also increases the cost of the CPU.
Y también hay que esperar que Xbox, ¿verdad? Lance lo de el RDNA2, qué sé yo, no sé si es que se dice así, pero que hay que esperar también, porque los juegos van a tener una mejora y grande. O sea, la gente está fronteando mucho de que en PlayStation se ve muchísimo mejor, pero la realidad es esa, que Xbox todavía no ha tirado, o sea, ha tirado un par de parches porque se está viendo ya la diferencia, pero no en todos los juegos. Y eso, pero no estoy diciendo que en Xbox todo es mejor, porque hay juegos que se ven mejores en Play 5. Pero nada, hay que esperar lo de Series X como quiera. Y además, viendo la diferencia en juegos que son como el Proyecto Mara, muchachos, eso está que flipa. Bueno, falta 30 segundos, mi gente. No es exacto, pero faltan. Pero nada, hay que tener una esperanza en este State of the Play. Pero no espero que sea la gran cosa, en verdad. No creo que sea la gran cosa. Bueno, por si acaso, mi gente, está en 1080. Mi monitor es 1080, no llega a 4K, así que... Y además, como quiera, el OBS no va a llegar en 4K, así que... Bueno. Me encanta esto. Pero, pues, pueden enseñar alguito de, por lo menos, de Horizon Zero Dawn. Es que esas cosas se lo van a guardar en el E3. Bueno, vamos. Este es Ratchet & Clank.
There's some very unexpected developments in your future.
Crash Bandicoot.
Shocking events that will change the course of your life.
That last part might have been a hair dramatic, but there's lots of awesome updates and additions coming to the Crash Bandicoot 4 It's About Time experience on PlayStation 5. Hey everyone, I'm Lou Studdard, creative producer at Toys for Bob. I'm here to give you the feature rundown on Crash Bandicoot 4 on PS5. That includes 4K at 60 frames per second, adaptive triggers, 3D audio, and more.
Espectacular el juego. Salió en Blizzard, pero
Crash Bandicoot Warp left off.
esperaré que lo bajen de precio.
We find the evil masterminds Neocortex and Dr. Entropy escaping a once thought inescapable interdimensional prison, leaving giant holes in the universe. What follows is a mind-bending adventure for Crash and his marsupial pals. We designed Crash Bandicoot 4 to leap off your screen, brimming with bold, vibrant environments and characters. Crash Bandicoot has always looked pretty suave, but wait until you see him spinning heads in native 4K at 60 frames per second. With the weight of the universe on your shoulders,
déjame decirle a mi gente, eso es un juegazo, pero
time to wait on loading screens.
es que esos juegos, no es que sean bien cortitos, así, pero esos juegos, pues, se acaban muy rápido, es más, los puedes terminar el mismo día, y por eso es que no quiero gastar, o sea, ¿cuánto cuesta? ¿60 pesos? Pero se ve duro,
Crank it up to 11 and take
tengo ganas de jugar la trilogía completa. Esperaré que en Steam lo bajen de precio y lo transmitiré. La saga completa y después juego ese juego, porque no quiero estar perdido.
But should our genetically mutated marsupial lose his way, leverage PlayStation 5 activity cards to track your progress and hit your goals for things like time trials, flashback levels, and boss fights. I bet Entropy wishes he had that.
Es brutal, un modo como el primer Crash Bandicoot.
From the PlayStation 4 and use the
O sea, un skin.
to get to 106%. Oh, and one more thing. If you own the PS4 version,
lo único malo que yo veo de ese juego es que ese juego va a tener micropago, o sea que
PlayStation blog for full details.
Algo innecesario, gasta 60 pesos y más encima te...
There's no better time to experience Crash Bandicoot 4 It's About Time on PlayStation 5.
PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5. Va a salir en marzo 12.
Welcome back, Crash. The gang's all here on today's new edition of State of Play. We've got some great updates lined up for you. First, let's check out the latest on an eagerly anticipated game coming to the PS5 console this spring from PlayStation Studios.
Ese es otro de los juegos, que ese juego lo están vendiendo como un AAA. Cuesta 70 pesos y ese juego es un AA. Y ellos dicen que es supuestamente un AAA, pero eso no es un AAA, es un AA. O sea, el juego no hay que ver mucho. El juego es un AA. Acuérdate, la prensa lo va a vender como si fuese un AAA, porque ellos quieren venderte el juego en 70, pero eso es un AA. No me van a decir que es un AAA. Un AAA es The Last of Us, juegos así. Eso sí es un AAA. Pero el juego también se ve interesante, no te creas. Tercera persona, un juego de shooter. Como haciendo la competencia a Gears, no sé. No sé, como que el estilo de disparar parece un poco el de Gears. Una cosa bien brutal. Si ven que la calidad se ve así medio maluca, es porque está transmitiéndose y eso baja la calidad. Cuando lo transmiten otra vez lo van a ver bien, hasta 4K, no sé qué calidad suban, pero lo van a ver perfectas condiciones, el directo. Pero el juego se ve increíble en verdad.
You will stumble across mysterious
exclusivo
devices that
PlayStation
can grant rewards to the player.
está
These will vary from weapons,
fuera liga.
consumables, and upgrades, and they can completely change your playstyle and make each cycle feel unique. Besides the intense combat, Returnal also has a deep and engaging narrative. We allow players to piece together the puzzle that is the story of Celine as they venture deeper and deeper into Atropos and into her personal nightmare.
That can't be here.
I think I am reliving my memories in that house, but not fully. They're corroded. Some parts are missing, others seem manufactured. But I can remember the torment, feeling like I was losing my mind. There's no comfort here. No safe space. Exactly as I left it.
Duro el juego, en verdad. Se ve duro.
Returnal lands on April 30th, and it's developed by the talented team at Housemarque. Next, let's take a closer look at a high-impact new PS4 game called Knockout City.
Ah, ok, sí, ese es el juego como que no sé. Parece un poco con los gráficos de Plan vs. Zombie.
A team-based multiplayer action game for PS4 where rival crews settle their scores with epic dodgeball battles.
No digo que es parecido Plan vs. Zombie, es que se parece Plan vs. Zombie. Lo había visto, pero...
In our 1v1 face-off mode, you'll go head-to-head in a constantly shrinking battleground, relying on your reflexes and abilities to knock out an opponent. A well-timed catch powers up the ball, making it easier to land a hit. Use trick shots to lob a ball over a ledge or hook it around a corner. Fake a throw to mess up your opponent's timing and knock them out before they can recover. When you're in a tough spot with a ball flying your way, a last-second dodge is the difference between getting knocked out and staying in the fight. Keep your wits about you and outplay your opponent to bring home a win. Let's jump into Team KO, our 3v3 mode. Teamwork makes the dream work in Knockout City. If your crew is outmatched, a well-coordinated team can still dominate. We're playing in Back Alley Brawl, a new map that you'll find in our upcoming crossplay beta. The special ball for this match is the Sniper Ball, which locks onto targets from far across the map and wham! You can take them out before they have a chance to react. Beyond special balls, each map features a unique mechanic. In Back Alley Brawl, you can hop into a tube and make a quick getaway or use them to sneak up on your opponents.
Esos juegos sinceramente deben de ser gratuitos. Deben de ser gratuitos esos juegos que son así, en verdad. Deben de ser gratis porque...
Or risk it all. Charge up a
son de los
teammate,
juegos
launch
estos
them
que
high into
quieren
the air with an ultimate
meterle
throw, and they'll land in a huge instant KO explosion. The team here at Velen has been obsessed with building this world over the last 4 years. Knockout City is coming out
May 21st,
que lo van a dar
con el PlayStation Plus. Sería para competir con Game Pass, no sé. Pero el juego se ve bueno, no te creas. O sea, entretenido, jugarlo así con amistades, pues el juego está fine. Va a salir beta, no sé cuándo, pero beta, 2021. Sí, ahí abajo lo dice. Es de Origins. O sea, de EA, Electronic Arts.
New. Here's your first look at an upcoming PS5 game from the team at Slowclap.
PlayStation en marketing está a otro nivel, hay que decirlo. Muchas compañías deben de aprender de esto porque PlayStation hace los mejores, o sea, los mejores eventos, casi siempre. Oh. Combate me gustó, no te creas. Sifu. 2021. PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5.
That was the debut of Sifu, coming to the PS5 console later this year. Now let's get an update on Solar Ash, an epic new PS5 adventure from Heart Machine.
Viene, estoy esperando Ragnarok. Bueno, no dijeron que iba a salir Ragnarok, pero estoy esperándolo.
Hey everyone, I'm Alex Preston, creative director of Heart Machine. You might know us as the team behind Hyperlight Drifter. Today, I'm here to show you the first peek at gameplay for our new title, Solar Ash. Solar Ash is a huge, stylish 3D platformer focused on speed, movement, and fluidity. The game is set inside
Vengo ahora rápido, mi gente, vengo
ahora. The Ultra Void, which has been consuming everything in its path. You play as Ray, a daring Void Runner who has decided to venture into this terrifying anomaly as a last-ditch effort to save her homeworld. Ray is extremely agile, able to speed across the world with abilities akin to skating. On the ashen clouds, she can quickly cover great distances in our huge world. At its core, Solar Ash is a game about movement. Ray has everything she needs to flow through the dangerous and unique world. As you journey to save your planet, you'll find yourself face to face with grotesque and violent creatures. Our combat system is simple, fast, and fluid, built to empower players and encourage flow. As you explore the Ultra Void, enemy encounters will scale to greater and greater sizes. Some of these creatures require speed and precise timing to defeat. Ray will eventually need to face the massive sentinels of this void, wretched, starved beasts that hold the key to her quest. Solar Ash is Heart Machine's vision of the adventure platformer. The giant spaces, the feel of movement, the flow of combat, and the high-stakes battles atop enormous beasts all come together to bring players something we think is incredibly unique, and more importantly, fun. This game is a labor of love for everyone.
Está poniéndose aburrido esto, enseñando juegos indies. O sea, no me gusta. Respeto a la gente que juega estos juegos, pero es que no me gustan,
¿verdad? No me atraen. If you're a fan of scary games, this next one is for you.
Empezamos con el terror, empezamos mal, corillo, empezamos fatal. Vaya que me voy a pegar un susto, tío. No me gustan los juegos de terror, tío. La paso fatal. Pero nada.
Gregory, we can get you out of here. You and me together. They won't stop hunting you. None of them will stop hunting you.
Primera persona.
We have to get you out by morning.
You will do as I say. You will bring me what I want. And if you fail me, then you will. Both of you burn!
is more going on here than you realize.
No me ha pegado ningún susto.
That was a chilling new look at 5 Nights at Freddy's security breach.
En los eventos así, pues, no hacen eso porque aparecen gente como yo que tiene que le da ataques, pues por eso no muestran esos sustitos en los juegos. Pero nada, se le agradece State of Play porque yo no soy muy, no aguanto mucho el susto, o sea, en los juegos, en ningún tipo de juego, hecho, no puedo jugar ninguno. Claro está, si aguantara el susto, pues me gustaría los juegos así, pero es que no lo aguanto. Es muy sensible.
We really wanted to bring this world to life with what we call 2.9D platforming, which adds much more depth and immersion for the player. This sense of connection is also reinforced through the use of the DualSense's haptic feedback, as you'll now be able to feel Abe's heartbeat in high alert and suspenseful situations. There are well over 1,000 fellow Mudokons that you must try to save along the way. But they are far more than helpless workers looking to be saved. When used effectively, you'll be able to solve puzzles, harness their combined energy, and be given the tools they need to fight alongside you.
A mí me está que lo último van a dejar a Horizon Zero Dawn. Lo último van a dejarlo Horizon Zero Dawn.
Armed enemies that will stop at nothing to find and end Abe once and for all. In order to stand a chance
siempre Sony se reserva
the ability to scavenge, loot, and pickpocket items from his surroundings and use them to craft an impressive arsenal of his own that he can share with others. You can also play as a non-lethal pacifist or an agent of chaos. We wanted you to have the choice. But there is one iconic ability for our shamanic protagonist, possession. This mystical power allows you to take control of your foes and use their strengths and weapons against them, or use them to gain access to paths still ahead. The Oddworld universe is a diverse place, and this means that there are some environments and situations that require a little more thought, patience, and stealth. You'll find dark and dangerous caves, heavily guarded industrial sites, and ancient forgotten lands. Here, we've built lots of opportunities for you to test your skills and find different ways to handle things. It won't be easy. If being hunted by an army backed by a shady and wealthy organization isn't bad enough, there are also more dangers in the forms of natural obstacles, ancient traps, trials against swarming dark creatures, that must be dodged, crossed, and avoided. Ultimately, Abe's journey is one of hope, freedom, and truth. There's a rich and engaging narrative to discover in a world full of lies, and we've been able to bring our characters to life like never before. In true Oddworld fashion, your actions in-game will decide the fate of Abe and all those you manage to liberate along the way, and we can't wait to see what you will do.
Me está mirando el tío, me está mirando.
That was the latest on Oddworld Soulstorm. And here's some exciting news. Active PlayStation Plus members will get the PS5 version for no extra cost, starting in April. Moving on, it's time to catch up with Kena Bridge of Spirits, a gorgeous new adventure we last saw in the June PS5 showcase.
Están diciendo, hay rumores que ese juego va a salir en el Plus. Si es verdad, esa es la clara contestación del Game Pass. O sea, juego el primer día que salga para ahí, eso yo lo voy a meterle mano, señores. Ese juego, chacho, ese juego yo lo estoy esperando, me está gustando. Igual que el de View Mutants, que ese juego para mí, eso va a ser una joya. Pero supuestamente, no sé, se retrasaría por lo del tema este del PlayStation Plus. Están diciendo eso, no me crean lo que estoy... O sea, Eso son rumores, eso no soy yo, eso no es de mi boca. Eso son rumores y tú sabes que los rumores pueden ser embustes, pueden ser verdad, lo que sea. Eso es un insider que anunció eso, pero nada. Y tampoco mi canal va de noticias, o sea, yo escucho de otros canales y de los otros canales pues comento, pero nada. Vamos a ver si tiran gameplay aquí. Estoy esperando gameplay. Bueno, estamos viendo aquí cosas que no vimos en el gameplay pasado. Pero nada, interesante ese juego, está interesante, país. Está brutal. Los gráficos también se ven bien pixel, bien película. Bien peliculón.
You must help these spirits if you wish to reach the mountain.
It's okay. You have to go now.
Amigos, si esto sale en PlayStation Plus va a arrasar. Kena Brick of Spirits. Agosto 24.
Now let's settle in for a stylish new look at Deathloop.
Eran rumores. O sea, no va a salir. Bueno, no se sabe, pero no enseñaron PlayStation Plus, no enseñaron nada de eso. Ese juego tiene como que gráficos de BioShock.
Bring it, baby.
Bien cartoons.
This is Ramblin' Frank's matinee. This little ditty goes out to the handsome asshole
Deja
trying
vu.
to break our loop. Cold, the visionaries are ready to dance. Are you?
Toxic illusion. Falling deeper spiral.
Madre mía. Vamos a bajarlo esto un poco. No me tumban aquí el directo. Bueno, aunque a mí no me está pagando YouTube, porque yo estoy empezando. Pero nada, lo voy a bajar por si acaso. Vamos a ver si se está escuchando aquí. Se supone que no se está escuchando porque yo lo bajé del OBS. Y de aquí también lo bajé. Vamos a ver si quitaron música. Quitaron música. No, quitaron música. No sé, mi gente. Lo bajé por si acaso si me tumban el directo. No sé. No sé si esa gente está verificando otros canales, pero pues lo bajé por si acaso. Así que... Espérate, que se va a escuchar doble porque estoy hablando por aquí. Voy a bajarlo por teléfono, obviamente. Y vamos a chequearla a ver. Vamos a dejarlo así, un poquito. Que se escuche... Que chavienda, mano. Hacho, olvídate de eso. A tomar el directo, pues. MK Ultra Illuminati.
Where you been hiding? Boy, do I got a bone to pick with you. Let's do it again tomorrow.
Si se preguntan por qué dije MK Ultra Illuminati, por el signo de mano. Por el signo de mano que hizo. Deathloop. No sé si lo pronuncié bien, pero es de Bethesda el juego. O sea que va a tener exclusividad para PlayStation porque oí que va a ser de un año. Y es porque, pues,
a huge update for one of 2020's most celebrated games.
PlayStation metió mano primero antes de que Xbox comprara Bethesda. Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy.
Quickly! Barrett! Give me a break!
Jesse! Barrett!
Where you been?
Tifa! Help me!
Come on! Let's push it past the red line! Now it's my turn! Got you, little force right here!
Cloud. Ese es el único personaje que sé. Ese salió en Smash. Dicen que está super chatado. Yo lo quiero probar, pero no he comprado el season de Smash Bros. Pero nada. ¿Quién es esa? Parece Monster Hunter, la de Monster Hunter, pero no es, obviamente.
Materia Hunter and Elite Special Forces operative for the new
Bueno, quién sabe que la metan aquí, pero no es.
That Wutai is not to be trifled with. Members of Avalanche, we got this.
I'm back.
Ah, there you are. Someone's been expecting you.
What took you?
Sorry about that. Anyway, it's nice to meet you. I'm Sonon Kusakabe.
Where's Cloud?
We lost him.
You what?
He will be okay though, right?
Well, of course he will.
They're the ones who blew up the reactors.
Cool. Should we say hi?
No, better not. After what they've done, you gotta assume Shinra's on their tail.
Look, a Moogle!
Stop!
We gotta help.
Nuevo personaje, no lo sé. Igual sí. Bueno, señores, no sé si sean nuevos personajes, pero es que yo no sé de estos juegos porque nunca he jugado ningún Final Fantasy.
No freaking way!
Boss!
You guys should probably get moving.
Got it.
Whatever it is they're planning, you're better off out of it.
We deserve what's coming to them.
Yeah, they do, but I'm not your sister.
There you are.
Who are these jerks?
No clue. It just appeared.
Final Fantasy VII Remake.
Now, let the hunt begin.
Bueno, ya saben la fecha. Hay rumores también que PlayStation va a comprar supuestamente Square Enix. Ah, que va a venir con las gráficas de Play 5. Muy bien, Square Enix. Hay diferencias, señores. Me imagino que el ray tracing, la iluminación, ¿será? Sí, iluminación. Vengo ahora, vengo ahora.
Wait, what? You see that?
That's how ninjas do it.
Yep.
That was the review of Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade, coming to the PS5 console later this year. And that's our show. We hope you're as excited as we are for what's to come in 2021. See you next time.
PlayStation.
There you have it, the first PlayStation State of Play of the year. And here to break down everything we just saw is the first next-gen console watch of the week. I'm Damon Hatfield, and as always, I'm joined by host of our...
En otro sitio, porque de verdad... Ay, 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 en otro sitio, otro sitio, otro sitio... Déjame un momentito. Voy a bregar con un momentito con lo de la cámara. Voy a bregar con lo de la cámara. Para ponerla un poquito más achicada. Así creo que está bien. Así me veo. Sí, así me veo. Así me veo bastante bien. Sé que esto era desde el principio, pero pues, como soy puertorriqueño dejo todo lo último. Y entonces chequearía en otra parte, porque de verdad ahí se van a poner a hablar mi gente, y yo no estoy para perder el tiempo. Yo no estoy para perder el tiempo, en verdad. Ah, eso era, en serio. Ya se acabó el Déjame verlo en otro programa. Que digan, otro programa a mí, como si estuviese en televisor en otro canal. Déjame suspenderlo aquí para que no les moleste el ruido. Voy a quitar aquí el audio.
La lista estuvo mejor. Déjame ver la lista. La lista dice... La lista... Voy a ver si pongo la lista. Un segundo.
Mi gente, estamos en... De verdad, estamos tan impresionados con ese hype. ¡Yache! Mano, qué clase de porquería de evento. Perdóname por la expresión, mi gente. Yo por si acaso, yo no soy de Xbox, yo soy más de PlayStation. Yo juego más exclusivo de PlayStation, o sea... Y además yo no tengo preferencia tampoco, porque para mí los dos son iguales. Pero qué desastre, mi hermano. O sea... Ya vi por qué Jin, el mentiroso Ryan, no quiso como que hypear a la gente por Twitter, donde más se publican cosas de PlayStation. No sé si es ahí, no sé si es en otra parte, pero que yo sepa es en Twitter, donde hablan más noticias y todo eso. Pero que ya vi por qué no subieron tanto hype. Pero nada, mi gente, eso es todo. Voy a estar transmitiendo ahora mismo. Voy a cancelar este directo y voy a estar transmitiendo el nuevo evento que metieron en Warzone. Creo que no es en Warzone, creo que es en Cold War, pero al igual chequearé y dicen que lo del barco está bastante bien hecho y pues nada, voy a estar metiendo la mano en lo que sería Warzone. Pero nada, mi gente, nada, los quiero mucho. Suscríbete para estar al tanto y ya tú sabes, mete mano en el like y mete mano en el botón de suscribirse y también la campanita. Bye, mi gente.